Happy Black Friday, everybody. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving with family and friends. It's a bittersweet day. It is week 14, the last week of the college football regular season. Carson Fox with you for Fox on West Virginia Mountaineer Sports, and we're previewing our beloved West Virginia Mountaineers, who are 6-5 overall, 5-3 in Big 12 play, at the Texas Tech Red Raiders, who are 7-4, also 5-3 in Big 12 play. A noon Eastern time, so 11 a.m. Central time in Lubbock, Texas. Kickoff from Jones AT&T Stadium, one of the toughest places to play in the Big 12 Conference on FS1. The betting odds for this game give a 3-point favorite to the home team, the Red Raiders. Over-under set at 64.5. The ESPN matchup predictor doesn't like West Virginia's chances, but like many of the last several weeks, it seems like it's been really right near 50-50 odds. So a 41.8% chance for West Virginia to win this game, and it's been a very even series. I'm going to give you first the matchup history, then we're going to talk a little bit about the injury situation, weather, what to watch for on West Virginia's side when it has the ball against Texas Tech's defense, what to look for out of Texas Tech's offense against West Virginia's defense, the kicking matchup, and in special teams, give you 3 keys to victory and get you out with a prediction. So got a lot to unpack in this contest. Once again, the regular season finale in the Big 12. So West Virginia leads the all-time series, but just so. 7-6. The series is tied 6-6. With these two programs as Big 12 opponents, but West Virginia does have the equalizer with the 1937 Sun Bowl on New Year's Day in El Paso, Texas. Last year, a game I was able to attend in Morgantown, we saw the Mountaineers come away with a victory 20-13 on September 23rd. It was a game that was really impacted by weather as the outer bands of Tropical Storm Ophelia reached Morgantown in an unseasonably cold and wet early afternoon in Morgantown. Nico Marchiol started his first career game under center for West Virginia after Garrett Green got injured in the backyard brawl in the second series. Besides 2 interceptions, which I know 2 interceptions are still 2 interceptions at the end of the day, it was an okay game played by Marchiol given the weather conditions for this one. 12 for 21 passing for 78 yards and a touchdown with 72 yards rushing on 15 carries. You may recall for Texas Tech starting quarterback Tyler Shuck, who's now with Louisville, broke his leg or had his leg broken in this game. And the Raiders were forced to turn to backup quarterback Baron Morton, who did start against the Mountaineers in 2022. It took Morton about really 2 quarters to get comfortable. Didn't look like he had much, if any, practice reps, especially with the first team during the week prior, also considering the weather conditions on the road. So 2 quarters really of complete, it wasn't a complete mess, but I would say not to the capability of what Texas Tech's offense could do, also what it showed under Shuck in the first quarter. But once the weather finally cleared in the fourth quarter, Morton led a comeback, bringing Texas Tech back to from 13-3 to 20-13. Texas Tech had 1st and 10 from the West Virginia 11 with under a minute to play. 4 straight incompletions forced a turnover on downs, and West Virginia was able to come away with its first victory over Texas Tech during the Neal Brown era. West Virginia, that was probably the most successful stretch of the season for the Mountaineers. Won their Week 2 contest against Duquesne, won a home matchup the week earlier from this game against the Pitt Panthers, then won this game, then went on the road at TCU, starting out the 2023 season 4-1. But how much of a fraudulent season that was, given how 2024 has gone. I guess maybe not so fraudulent of a season, but it's just like expecting more out of this season given the way 2023 went. Anyway, let's take a weather alert for this game because you know how it can play an impact on the game. But in this case, beautiful, picturesque, what you're looking for out of Lubbock. High 59 degrees on the day, only 7-mile-per-hour winds. The way they say the winds blow off the prairie down there in Lubbock, it can always be a wild one, but doesn't sound like it's going to be too breezy of a day like it impacted the game apparently in 2012. What's on the line for both teams? For Texas Tech, they could reach 8 wins in a season for just the second time over the last 10 years, but in 2 of their last 3 seasons. So I think it would definitely comfortably keep head coach Joey McGuire in Lubbock with momentum going into 2025, with Behren Morton coming back as a senior third-year starting quarterback, and definitely the pride of getting to a potential better bowl bid if they come away with this victory. But Texas Tech, like West Virginia, I know they are still mathematically possible, and I've seen some tweets this way that they need like 9 different games to go their way to potentially get to the Big 12 championship game, the way things could go for Saturday. But in both of these cases, both teams are still, bowl eligible teams, so not necessarily playing for bowl eligibility at this point in time, but trying to improve their overall regular season win. And, this is the thing about college football. It used to be that the journey meant more than the destination. And an 8-win season, I know for what Oliver Luck said about whenever Bill Stewart was let go and hiring of Dana Holgorsen as the new head coach, but 8 wins used to still really mean something, 9 wins even more so. If you had a 10 or more win season, a very special, historic season. But now that's just not the case with the college football playoff. You're making your conference championship game or bust in the year of 2024, and if this college football playoff expands even more so to 14 teams or more, it's going to mean in these games even less than they already do. But 8 wins for Texas Tech would really be a big deal. Once again, really show that they've picked up momentum under head coach Joey McGuire. For West Virginia, same situation. We're still really more so the pride of getting to 7 wins and a potential better bowl bid. Back-to-back potential 6 Big 12 winning seasons. So winning 6 conference games in a singular season. And with the ability, as according to Neal Brown said during his Monday press conference, to finish no worse than 3rd in the league. So that's still saying something. Would also be the first win in Lubbock of the Neal Brown era. Got his first win against the Red Raiders last year in Morgantown. Can West Virginia do it on the road in this contest? Now, it's really unknown as to whether this game has any impact on Brown's job status in Morgantown, whether West Virginia falls to 6-6 or improves to 7-5. That has been hotly debated, it feels like, for solidly every day for the last month, about how West Virginia concludes the month of November and the impact on this game. If you're reading some of the tea leaves, it sounds already like one coach is going to be leaving no matter how this game goes for 2025, given that 2 recruits have decommitted this week at the same position in the defensive backs. So I'm pointing right towards Shadon Brown, but does this mean bigger things going further up the chain all the way to the head coach? And that's kind of the debate, unfortunately, is if West Virginia is able to get to 8-5 at the end of the season, win this game, get to a bowl, win a bowl game, yes, take a 1-game step back from 2023 to 2024, is it really deserved of Neal Brown getting the axe? I wholeheartedly, and I think if you followed my channel all season, absolutely. The season and his job status was on life support September 14th whenever West Virginia lost to Pitt by not following it up with either of 2 home victories against ranked opponents in Iowa State and Kansas State. And then whenever there was still a sliver of hope, there was still a narrow path to get to the Big 12 championship game by beating Baylor just a couple of weeks ago. Failure by a Neal Brown-led West Virginia team. So I don't think that this game should bear any impact on his job status for 2025. That ship has sailed. It has been 6 seasons. Do I want West Virginia to win? Do I want West Virginia to compete? All of that? Abso-freaking-lutely. Yes, I want them to beat the Red Raiders tomorrow. So let's not question that. Let's talk about the injury situation. Still the only real three to make note of, although everybody at this point in season, week 14, has bumps and bruises, things that have just lingered for maybe months at this point in time. No one's playing 100%. But three players that continue to remain out and have been for the bulk of this season. Aubrey Burks, arguably the most disappointing situation of the 2024 season, is the fact that West Virginia really has gotten nothing out of Aubrey Burks, unfortunately, this season. Jaden Bray, same situation, big transfer portal add this season, trying to bolster that wide receiving core, and he's unfortunately just not been available. And same with Aiden Garnes at cornerback. What to watch for when Texas Tech has the ball. So let's talk about the Texas Tech offense versus the West Virginia defense. Now, oh boy. The Red Raiders have the highest scoring offense in the Big 12. And also tied for 12th nationally at 37.4 points per game since so they're scoring at such a high rate. The second highest total offense in the Big 12 behind UCF's. That's also 17th nationally. So in terms of yardage, so they put up yards, they put up points. This is Texas Tech football. This is who they are. This is their DNA. They are not Iowa. They are the antithesis of Iowa. We're not going to play much defense at all, and I'll talk about those numbers. We are going to score frequently. We are going to score often. We are not going to stop for 4 quarters. We are going to put up points. We are going to win with as much fire as possible. No one sprays more fire than we do. We don't play much defense. Now, has that worked out to their benefit of pretty much my entire lifetime? To varying degrees, but still with very little success, with years that you can point here and there where they actually were contending for Big 12 championships. I can think of the years with Michael Crabtree, especially Mike Leach as head coach. They've been okay, but they've never been one that, because they don't play any defense, they're never able to contend for a conference championship. So that's what, I think whenever head coach Joey McGuire came in and when we were looking at this team last year with was it 2 years ago, had some big studs on the defensive side of the ball, is could Texas Tech finally put it together? Could they get you enough defense with this kind of high-powered offense that they were going to contend for a conference championship? This year, and they've been very good, but not great. It's a pass-heavy RPO game with an awesome running back and fifth-year senior Taj Brooks. So first and foremost, we got to talk about their quarterback, number 2 junior Baron Morton. 275 for 425. That's a 63% completion percentage, so pretty darn good out of him. For 2,976 passing yards. He's third in the Big 12 and 13th in the nation with those passing yards. 25 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. Does have negative rushing yards because he's not much of a scrambler, but he is a guy who, with the potential for short yardage situation runs like Iowa State's Rocco Becht, I feel like they're in the very much the same vein. And back in 2022, when he did play in this start for this contest for the Red Raiders against the Mountaineers, he was awesome. He was excellent. 28 for 45 for 325 yards and 2 touchdowns in Texas Tech's 48-10 win over the Mountaineers. Just a complete blowout, decimation of a 2022 West Virginia team that just didn't look like this game. Same with Iowa State, just did not look like they wanted to be there, didn't really much want to compete. This is when JT Daniels was going through the throes of it, and like West Virginia fans like myself was just knocking on the door of, why do we not see Garrett Green? Is this the best that we can do? And the thing with Morton is, this year, he's got a bevy of pass catchers, a lot of them coming through the transfer portal, 3 of their top 4, 3 being wide receivers, 1 being a tight end, and also they throw to Brooks, the running back. So their best wide receiver, number 3, 6th-year super senior, Josh Kelly, a transfer from Washington State, also played at Fresno State. 80 receptions, that's good for 3rd most in the Big 12 behind Colorado's Travis Hunter and Oklahoma State's Brennan Presley. For 873 yards, that's good for 7th in the Big 12. and 5 touchdowns. The touchdowns are pretty spread evenly across the pass catchers, but Kelly doing most of the receptions and the yardage for this team. But also, junior number 5, Caleb Douglas, a transfer from the University of Florida, is a standout as well. 52 catches for 712 yards and 5 touchdowns. He was the leading receiver last week in Texas Tech's narrow, high-scoring victory over the Oklahoma State Cowboys on the road. 5 catches for 102 yards and a touchdown. 2 others that West Virginia's got to take note of. Number 8, redshirt sophomore Coy Egan, 39 catches for 557 and 6 touchdowns. That's the team lead. And also number 12, fifth-year senior tight end Jalen Conyers, a transfer from Arizona State, also played at Oklahoma for a year. 25 catches for 271 yards and 5 touchdowns. Now, if that isn't enough of a arsenal for Morton to just shoot missiles at all game long, tossing all over the field against this West Virginia secondary that has struggled all season long. They have one of the best running backs in college football. Fifth-year senior Taj Brooks feels like he's been there for ages. In 10 games this season, he's got 263 carries. That leads the Big 12 and is third in the nation for 1,317 rushing yards. That's second in the Big 12 between R.J. Harvey at UCF, sixth most in the nation, and also has 14 touchdowns. He adds 26 catches for 164 yards and a touchdown, and he's been awesome against the Mountaineers in 2 contests, one in Morgantown and one in Lubbock. Last year against the Old Gold and Blue, he had 25 carries for 149 yards and a touchdown, and 2 years ago in Lubbock, 17 carries for 107 yards and 2 touchdowns. Even that was when he was backing up Sir Roderick Thompson, and he's just been a standout player for 3 seasons now for the Red and Black. Last week had arguably his best game of the season, 28 carries for 133 yards and 3 touchdowns rushing, and then a team-high 9 catches for 65 yards and a touchdown. He was awesome last week against the Cowboys. Now, Texas Tech has run the 3rd most plays of any FBS team, averaging 79 plays per game. And they've done a better job, it seems like, this season compared to last season when they didn't have a positive record at turning the ball over. Just 18 turnovers for the season, but still 14th worst in FBS in penalty yards per game at 68. So that's the thing with Texas Tech when they try and play so fast, try and play basketball on grass, that they just want to run so many plays that they are prone to turning the ball over potentially and having procedure penalties. So they're cutting back on those turnovers but still have the penalty yardage. But they play fast, they play mean, they want to score every single possession, and they can score in bunches. And they like to do their damage early. They have the 5th best, they're 5th in the country in first quarter points at 9.8. So they score fast, they score early, and they want to get, and just like West Virginia does, want to play with a lead and then be able to, jump into their defense as best as humanly possible. But they like to play, back and forth street ball type of offense. So if you're just going to linger around and you're not going to put points on the board, they're going to try and get ahead of you, stay ahead of you, and hopefully by the 4th quarter that they have just enough points that they can pull it out. But that's the thing. They have the potential to blow people out. Just haven't seen that a ton so far this season. So for the West Virginia defense going against this Texas Tech offense, you got to stand tall on 3rd down. Held Texas Tech last year in that contest in Morgantown to 2 of 18 on 3rd down. Texas Tech was 5 of 8 on 4th down, so 7 of 26 total. That's still pretty good. That's a still pretty good percentage against this Texas Tech team. But again, I think that was mainly due to the weather. The Texas Tech was not able. That's what I feel like. That was a great equalizer. The weather was the great equalizer. Kind of a slick Mountaineer field behind me. Didn't let Texas Tech get up to the line of scrimmage, run those bombs down the field on West Virginia and hit you fast. You're not going to have that element to your advantage down there in Lubbock in this contest. So how can you do on 3rd and 4th down, but namely 3rd down? That's going to be important. Stops are huge. That's when the momentum can shift. If Texas Tech scores once, they're going to want to score in bunches. It's whenever they You can get them off the field in 3 downs, or or 5 downs. Get them off the field as quickly as humanly possible to get your offense back onto the field, because that's what they can do damage against you. I think it's beating a dead horse at this point in time. Need an early turnover forced. How many times has West Virginia won this season because they forced a turnover early? Cincinnati, Arizona, last week against UCF. You have to force a turnover early if you're West Virginia to, once again, get ahead defensively and give your West Virginia offense chances. West Virginia's got to get a good push up front on the defensive line and limit Brooks getting to the second and third level, because West Virginia's secondary will have their hands full with these wide receivers. If they're going to have to, assign defensive backs only to be able to cover these wide receivers and not help as much in run support as humanly possible, or their focus and concentration is set so much on stopping these wide receivers and not giving up the big play, it just puts more pressure on West Virginia's defensive linemen to get a good push. And then this linebacking crew, this could be a day for you. This could be Josiah Trotter, Reed Carrico, Trey Lathan. This is your moment. Once again, just like last week against RJ Harvey. It's just Texas Tech adds that added dimension of the pass game that the Golden Knights really didn't have. So puts more pressure on you guys as the front 5, or front 6, front 7. And then young guys, like I said at the onset, at this point in time, week 14 of the season, attrition adds up. The wear and tear on these starters has now reached their apex. So can some young guys get into the game, add some valuable snaps? I'm looking at guys like Zay Jennings at safety, Nate Gabriel on the defensive line. We've seen him here and there. Elijah Kinsler at defensive end. Can he come onto the field for Sean Martin, spell him a little bit? TJ Jackson. But also guys like Jacob Boyce, who we haven't really seen since the Oklahoma State game when he got burned in the fourth quarter. Obinna Onwuka hasn't been talked about at all, I feel like, this season. And also a name that always comes up, I feel like, week in and week out at press conferences that Neal Brown says he wants to get into the game is Keon Washington at cornerback. So can some of these guys, I just give you 6 right there, contribute somewhat into this contest to spell these starters? Are we going to have to burn these starters out till they have absolutely no gas left? So that's what to watch for when Texas Tech has the ball. Let's talk about West Virginia's offense. So first and foremost, talking about this Texas Tech defense, they present as a 3-3-5, like many of the defenses in the Big 12 Conference. The worst scoring defense and second worst total defense in the Big 12 at 36 points per game and 456 yards respectively. So big numbers allowed by the Red Raiders. But their 3 best wins have come when its defense has held its opponent to 22 points. So I'm sure that they have that number marked and wanting to hold the Mountaineers to there. Arizona State with just 22 points scored against this Texas Tech defense. At Arizona, only 22 points, and same at Iowa State. But they've given up big numbers. Week 1, 51 points to Abilene Christian in overtime, 37 to Washington State. I know that's a team that's fluctuated in and out of the top 25. 41 to Cincinnati at home, 59 to Baylor at home, 41 to Colorado at home. Last week against Oklahoma State, they gave up 48 points. So they do have the turnovers gained edge on West Virginia, but there's nothing that this Texas Tech defense does any better than West Virginia. The only thing is, yes, the turnovers, 18-10 for the Mountaineers, and that's just unfortunately been the downside. If this West Virginia defense doesn't force turnovers, it usually doesn't win the ball game, and 10 for an entire season just isn't good enough. That's why Jordan Leslie was fired. That's why Shadon Brown's pretty much out the door. That especially this defensive secondary just has not done enough overall for an entire season to get those turnovers. But when they do, they give West Virginia a chance to win. But that's the same thing with Texas Tech. That's the same kind of model that they want to try and win by, is forcing turnovers to give this defense, which just is all over the place. But there's one player for Texas Tech that you have to keep note of. He's the Big 12 leader in tackles and 6th nationally with 114, and that's number 10 senior linebacker Jacob Rodriguez. 8.5 tackles for loss, 3 forced fumbles, 2 fumbles recovery. Kind of reminds me, I feel like, of what Lee Koba added, or Tony Fields has added to this to West Virginia's defense in recent years. So that's everything goes through Jacob Rodriguez, the defensive captain for the Red Raiders. Got to watch for him. And also number 25, sophomore free safety Chapman Lewis. Number 9, senior strong safety CJ Baskerville. They both have they're tied for the team lead with 3 interceptions each. So stay away from these safeties if you can. Attack the corners. For West Virginia's offense going against this putrid Texas Tech defense, I think Garrett Green's got to put on a show. This has got to be arguably the best performance that he's had in an old gold and blue uniform, and West Virginia is going to need him, just like West Virginia needed Geno Smith in 2012 to score pretty much every offensive series. So I know that hasn't helped Garrett. That has not helped Garrett whatsoever. This season's felt like he's just needed to press, and whenever he tries to press, he throws picks. Can think in the Baylor game, can think in the Kansas State game, can think in the Iowa State game, even the Pitt game, backyard brawl, week 2. But he's going to have to go out there, play within himself to the best of his ability and his team. So that's my biggest question. Who around Garrett is going to help him? Is it Jaheim White and CJ Donaldson, who last week against UCF had 31 carries for 150 yards and 3 touchdowns? They both had a rush of over 30 yards in that contest, so 2 big plays each. From both of those running backs. I think they ought to be chomping at the bit after Ollie Gordon for Oklahoma State last week against Texas Tech had 156 yards and 3 touchdowns himself on just 15 carries, including a 68-yarder. So you can do everything against this Texas Tech defense you want from the rushing game. I think both those guys are going to have to help out Garrett Green in this contest. But also in the receiving core, who outside of Hudson Clement is going to step up in the passing game? Rodney Gallagher, West Virginia needs you. Needs you more than just one catch, one splash catch in this contest. Cole Taylor, had his season high for receptions of just 5 3 times. Iowa State, Cincinnati, Baylor had his season high for yards with 61 against Kansas State. But can Cole Taylor put together one, I'm thinking like TJ Hawkinson or George Kittle performance of 2 NFL type tight ends who can get to 100 yards or more? Can he catch 10 passes in this contest? Or is it Justin Robinson? There's just been some splash plays here and there. I can think of the 4th down reception last week that West Virginia desperately needed that Robinson came away with, or week 2 in the backyard brawl. The last time that those 2 players are going to wear an old gold and blue uniform in the regular season, can they make this their best game? Still, go to Hudson Clement early and often and, feed the beast, who just seems like to be an emerging playmaker that might be one of the best in the Big 12 next year. But for now, outside of him, who's going to be that second pass catcher that steps up? And also, I just think Neal Brown is going to have to play uncomfortably aggressive for the way that he likes to play. West Virginia likes to go for it on 4th down. It seems like that's what Neal Brown took a page out of Joey McGuire's coaching manual and said, all right, we're going to try and go for it for the last 2 seasons, pretty much every single time on 4th down. It's worked to varying degrees of success. I'm not saying that he knows when's the right time to do it and when not. In fact, I'm saying the opposite. But at least that Neal Brown is very aggressive. And from how conservative he was from 2019 through 2022, and infamously from the 22 backyard brawl. But I'm just saying, for this contest, you're going to have to put up points to keep, at will to keep up with this Texas Tech team. So coaching it kind of like Dana Holgorsen did against Oklahoma in 2018. And what I have to say toward that is, does he have anything creative, anything outside of special teams offensively that is outside the norm? I think we've only seen really one play of creativity this season, and thankfully it worked. But it was that 2-point conversion play against Kansas, in which West Virginia desperately needed that 2-point conversion of Traylon Ray throwing it to the end zone to Cole Taylor, and he came away with a touchdown. But that's what I mean. So many teams at this point in the season, and if you're Neal Brown and this is the last time you're ever going to coach the Mountaineers, full stop. Like, pull the plugs. You're just going to do what do you have to lose? You're playing with house money. Go out there and try something that you might, and if it doesn't work, at least you tried it. Why running the same bland vanilla offense that you have for 6 seasons now? Is there anything creative? Is there anything outside the norm? That some of these other, like, he seems to watch other football. Like when he talks about in his press conferences, talking about other Big 12 games, talking about the NFL games, like he's obviously seen some plays run by other schools that you would think to yourself, like, man, oh man, can he just pick up on one thing from those games and use it for West Virginia? But no. So, like using Marchiol and Green at the same time on the same offense, and one throwing to the other. Like, I don't know. I'm just spitballing here, but that's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. Is, can West Virginia do something unique, something creative offensively against this Texas Tech defense? Because you're gonna be able to do what you want offensively. It's just like Texas Tech is they're gonna try and get you off the field on third down as well. Special teams unit, we have another Australian punting situation. Love it. Absolutely love it. Jack Burgess, a junior for Texas Tech, 43 punts on the season, 42 yards per punt average, a long of 59. Got 5 over 50 plus and 17 inside the 20. He's a good punter. For Ollie Straw, he must have heard me on my pregame show from a week ago. Had arguably his best game of the season last week against UCF. 2 punts of 50-plus yards, including tying his season long at 57, and 2 were inside the UCF 20. So he's up that per punt average, back over 43. Let's see if he can do it again down in Texas. So Burgess, Straw, Aussie punting matchup. Here we go. Punt return or return game, this is going to be very interesting. Very interesting, and Neal Brown talked about this in his press conference on Monday. I think that Preston Fox has been a bit of a revelation on these last few weeks in the return game. He was awesome on kickoff last week, had another 40-yard return. He's upped his average in kickoff returns to 27.6 yards per return. If he were eligible with one more kickoff return, he only has 11, needed 12 to get on this list, he'd be 5th nationally. So if he had one more return, he'd be one of the best in the country. On the opposite side, they have 2 guys who can do damage for Texas Tech, talking about Dre McCray and Jacoby Williams. They both combined for 15 returns on the season. They both average right around 26 yards per return. McCray has a long return of 74. Williams has a long of 57. So West Virginia's coverage unit, noticing this, has done much better this season compared to last season. Obviously a point of emphasis for Jeff Coons as the special teams coordinator, and they've done so really well this year. Last year they gave up 17 yards per kick, last year they gave up 25 yards per kickoff return, and I know that was upped a lot because of Richard Reese's 2 kickoff returns for touchdowns for Baylor, but this year down to 17.3 yards per kickoff return, so 8 yards difference. That pays dividends. Those winning on the margins thing that Neal Brown absolutely loves. Kickoff return unit has done so much better this year. Punt return, though, not much to say about both squads. Fox doing the duty for the Mountaineers, Josh Kelly and Jordan Brown doing the duties for the Red Raiders. The kicking game is also going to be fascinating because Texas Tech has a good one, 6th-year senior Gino Garcia, 15 of 16, on his field goal attempts for the season with a long of 53. He's a perfect 45 for 45 on point afters. And then for West Virginia, Michael Hayes, his last game in the regular season for the Mountaineers, redshirt senior, 11 of 12 for field goals, long of 45, 37 for 37 for points after. So give you my 3 keys to victory, give you a prediction, and get you out on that. I think first and foremost, for Garrett Greene and the West Virginia offense, can West Virginia score 40 plus? West Virginia has only done that once this season, and it was week 2 against Albany. I thought going into this season that we were going to be saying this more than we have, that West Virginia's per game scoring average is right around where it was a year ago. I think maybe just a tick under. I thought West Virginia could score closer to 36 points per game. It's kind of splitting the difference between the 2018 offense led by Will Grier that was awesome with last year's offense, which, we were thinking 2024 was going to be the best offense since then with all of the returning production that West Virginia's had. Unfortunately, that hasn't been the case. So if Texas Tech is going to score near its per game average and 37 points per game, you got to get to 40. You got to get to 40. So can West Virginia do that? That is my biggest question mark. Can this be an offensive onslaught unlike we've seen this season with Garrett Greene leading the charge, doing it all, and especially I feel like through the air? If West Virginia can't have its best passing day of the season, then I don't think West Virginia wins this game. West Virginia's got to be able to air the ball out. Number 2, rack up those key defensive stops and support it with scores the other way to play with a lead. So I'm taking a page out of the 2023 game and just saying you got to get those stops on third down to get Texas Tech off the field. And they still had 18 attempts on third down. So Texas Tech is, just like Oklahoma State, going to want to wear you down with the volume. It's the volume for them, is that they want to just come at you in waves and waves, and they have the endurance, they have the capability to play with this kind of tempo. So can you get those key defensive stops, West Virginia defense, when you need to? And then the opposite way, that's what I'm talking about. West Virginia get the ball either by way of turnovers or just on change of possessions and then score. So that to keep up with Texas Tech, and because I know that this game is coming down to the end. And I'll repeat it as one of my keys to victory that I talked about with the West Virginia offense is, what have you got to lose, Neal Brown? If this is it, if this is your last game as head coach of the Mountaineers, then just pull out all of the stops. Fight fire with fire, score in bunches, you do some creative stuff. Double reverses, flea flickers, fumble rooskies. I don't care at this point in time. You don't have to play you're playing with house money so conservatively. Go out there and do some things that we have yet to see. Because at the end of the day, what is your consequence? Try and win this game. Don't play not to lose, play to win. Please. So prediction, unfortunately, I don't have a good feeling about this game because of how good Texas Tech's offense is. I think Texas Tech's offense is better than Baylor's. I know Baylor beat them by how many scores, but just seeing that game in Morgantown a few weeks ago and how that West Virginia defensive secondary performed against Texas Tech, against Baylor, I think Texas Tech is even better. I like their pass catchers a lot better than I like Baylor's. I like Taj Brooks better than I like Bryson Washington. I like Barron Morton better than Sawyer Robertson. So I just don't know how West Virginia can stop Texas Tech for 4 quarters with this secondary, especially not knowing where their head is at, knowing that Shadon Brown's probably fired, and are any of the guys below him, are below on the depth chart, thinking about trying to find somewhere elsewhere with the transfer portal. I don't know. We don't know that. But offensively, I think West Virginia is going to try and do the things that I talked about. So that's why, when I was trying to do a prediction, trying to come up with this, I think that West Virginia can tie Texas Tech by the end of the day, if it or tie by the end of regulation. I think that Garrett Greene's going to try and put on a show. going to try and do everything in his power to possibly do so. And it's going to be one of those kind of like, Oklahoma 2018 or Baylor 2012 type of performances that like you're just going to have multiple heart attacks as the game goes along because it's just going to be all offense all game long. So I think I could see West Virginia tying Texas Tech at 38 by the end of regulation. So I'm thinking it's going to be almost like Kansas in 2022, and I think Texas Tech in double overtime is going to come away with a victory. So West Virginia is going to give Texas Tech all it has for 4 quarters on both sides of the ball. It's just at this point in the season, looking at the pecking order of the Big 12 of the best teams and the worst teams, unfortunately, this is a team in West Virginia that I feel like is closer to the middle bottom than the middle top. Texas Tech is closer to the middle top just because of all the things offensively that they have going for them. They have all of the tools. They can go, assert their will for 4 quarters offensively and do so. And I just don't think that West Virginia has enough stars at this point in the season to keep up with them, or to get stops whenever they need to, like they did, because of the weather factor in 2023 for West Virginia's offense. Like, this is just going to be an unbelievable performance. So definitely one that I would tune into. Get your popcorn ready. It's going to be exciting, and we're going to break it down good, bad, or indifferent on Sunday, whether this is a win or loss. I feel like we're going to have more even to talk about come Sunday, maybe Monday, so you're going to get a lot of shows from me in a quick period of time, I feel like, with a potential head coaching change, early signing day on Wednesday, then the transfer portal opening up, so we're going to have a lot, maybe a potential bowl game, that we're going to have a lot to talk about over the course of this next week or so. So, it's going to be a fun one. Week 14, can't hold anything back. Last regular season contest to beat the Red Raiders. Let's hope West Virginia does it. What do you think? Give me your comments here on YouTube. If you like this video, hit the like button so more Mountaineer fans can see it across YouTube, and would love to have you as a subscriber as I'm closing in on about 400 for this regular season. We'll also have to talk more about this West Virginia upstart basketball team as we head into the month of December. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your dog that I do this each and every week and have a lot of fun doing it, and I'll be back on Sunday. So hail West Virginia. Let's go.